I'm a professor at Cornell. Here I am in our natural dye garden. And so people are like, how does fiber? Of course, the clothing that we wear has to be dyed. There's a lot of chemistry, there's a lot of social science and humanities. And so it's a really wonderful interdisciplinary field where I get to study social and cultural aspects of dress through the materials and the science behind it. So happy to talk more about those specifics if that's an area of interest for any of you who want to bridge art and science. So I also want to mention, just to start, that there are a lot of amazing existing resources out on the internet. And of course, most of the schools that you are going to apply for are going to require you to complete a Common App application. And so a lot of what I'll talk about today sort of focuses on that, because that's sort of the starting point. Some of you are juniors, some of you are sophomores. I'm kind of talking a little bit more to the juniors, but the sophomores, I hope to sort of plant the seed of what to be thinking about. Just as Lindsay mentioned, your story is unfolding, and it always will be unfolding. You're a fluid and dynamic human being. So your college list is very important, because depending on the list of schools that you plan to apply to, those schools will have additional essays. And those essays, if you want them to be compelling, are going to have to be very particular to that institution. And that involves a lot of research. But what I will say is it's really fun research. And because of COVID, which has obviously been a tragedy, the silver lining of that is schools have done a really amazing job of trying to put online, virtual tours, updating websites, making the digital realm much more accessible. So I really encourage you, it doesn't matter what level you're at, you could be in middle school, you can start looking at colleges and exploring what the options are. But honing down that list is very important in terms of managing your time. Time management, whether I'm talking to myself here too, time management is so important. Now, tomorrow, the rest of your life. And so really mapping out for yourself a schedule that you can commit to. Writing, a 5,000 word essay, for example, is a lot easier if you just say, okay, I'm going to write 250 words a day, and spread it out, and then come together. Mapping out your schedule and then committing to it is going to really help you. And so understanding what the workload is that's ahead of you in this process is really important. And that all hinges upon how many schools are you going to apply to, what are the schools, and what are the additional requirements. But what you can start working on now, especially if you're a junior, is your Common App essays, which are going to likely be required of all of the schools that you're applying to. They've announced their essays, and you can find these online, and I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anyone, but these are the essay prompts that they have listed for this year, including one new prompt, which is number 4. Reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? I love that this is a new question, because it's really such like a nice, positive, motivating spin. But there are a lot of really interesting questions that draw on the points that Lindsay was making about identifying your superpower and your story, and really making a compelling story that is going to resonate with other people. And so this is really important part of your application process. So these are the prompts, and I'm sharing them with you today because as you read them, some you might think, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm going to say to that. And then others, you're like, I have like 10 ideas for this prompt. I don't even know which one to go with. So I want to say before you start sort of planning out your essays that they have to be considered within context. And Joan will talk about this much more explicitly, but your application is going to include things like your transcript, a list of activities, your work, and your family responsibilities. So the domestic labor that we perform every day is really actually very important, and can be included too in your application. Test scores and dates of your entrance exams, we all know about that. Information about your parents. So your entire application is taken within the context of your school, the resources available to you, all of these things. And then of course your academic honors and achievements. So you want to consider in your essays both your past, your present, and also perhaps most importantly, your future. because we want to know the direction that you're going. And so this is something to challenge yourself to think about, like, who do I want to be in the world? What kind of change do I want to make? How do I want to make the world a better place? I think this is a really important place to start. And so you can also use the essays to make the other parts of your application more legible and powerful. For example, a lot of times I tell people I study fashion and culture, and they're like, what? I don't understand how these two things work together. And then I sort of bring, these two areas of study and explain it to them. And they're like, oh yeah, of course, we use our fashion and our bodies to display who we are and what our cultural background is, economic background, or gender, or, et cetera, et cetera. So really making clear how maybe some of your academic honors and achievements, which may seem perhaps to a reader initially like they don't relate to the future you're imagining for yourself or your future area of study, you can use your essay to make those connections. So it's important to not sort of make it repetitive, right? Like you're not just repeating a list of your honors and achievements, but you're helping the reader to understand how those make legible the essay and what you're hoping to do in the future. So I want to just end today by thinking about some tips for success over the next few days, weeks, months, years. And this has been really helpful for me as a scholar. I have to write a lot. And so if you have a community of friends, of other colleagues, of family who are also writing, and for all of you in high school, there are other students at your school who are planning to apply for college. Maybe you create a writing group where you can hold one another accountable, and you can swap essays, you can read one another, you can share ideas. You can start this with your friends like today, or even all those of you on the call. Start outlining and brainstorming. So you have the essay prompts for the next cycle for the Common App, and those don't change too much year to year. So you can start today sort of brainstorming and outlining. And the most important thing is to feel inspired, right? The words come when you feel passionate about writing them. And this involves both embracing the fun, right? But also the iterative process. So by that, I mean, like, it's never the first essay you write, which is why it's gonna take a lot of time. You wanna experiment and have fun with the process of brainstorming. And then discuss what you've brainstormed with as many people as possible. And this can just help you kind of do a sort of quasi sort of sociological experiment here to kind of see what resonates with people. Sometimes I'm surprised. For example, I manage our social media for our fashion collection, and I'm always surprised at what posts, for example, the stories that we tell about a garment, whether it's a World War II military uniform, or a garment worn by Yoruba peoples of West Africa. I'm always sometimes surprised by what seems to resonate and gets people talking and excited. And so the more you can share your ideas about what you might respond to in the essays with as many people as possible, and just gather feedback. This is just like information gathering, because that informs the work that you're doing. Then you can really sort of settle on your topic, begin to organize your thoughts and outline your essay. And all of this can be happening in conversation with both maybe your writing group, with your friends, but also your mentor, your teachers, your family, anyone that you trust in this academic process. And remember, it is a process. It's going to take a lot of time, and you have to embrace the journey. Please don't be discouraged. The first thing that we produce, whether it's, in my field, a fashion design, or a paper or an article or whatever, the first draft is never the final draft. So it's going to take time, and it's going to take iteration and revision. And that also requires you to set your ego aside and really just be open to thinking about how to improve your writing and your essay. So again, this comes back to the ability to revise, refine, to share your writing with others for feedback. And that's why all of us are here, is to help you in this process.